settle in for a slower way to experience history. This video pairs the quiet rhythm of a real log fire with selected urban heritage audio excerpts from Edinburgh's Queensferry. As the flames rise and fall, voices and soundscapes guide you through moments of place, memory, and meaning, allowing history to be listened to rather than watched. From the ancient ferry crossing that gave Queensferry its name, to landmarks such as the Forth rail bridge, whose great cantilevered spans transformed the Firth of Forth and the communities beside it. These short podcast sections are designed for calm, reflective listening. There is no rush, no narration overload, just heritage stories unfolding while the fire burns steadily in the background. This is history as atmosphere, ideal for evenings, reading, relaxation, or quiet reflection. Let the fire hold your attention while the story works gently in the background. These audio pieces form part of the wider PhotoART History Project, a growing collection of podcasts, films, and PhotoART history ebooks exploring urban heritage across Scotland and beyond. Full episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms. Between the shores of Fife and Lothian land, where tides run dark and wide, a silver thread was drawn by hand across the Forth's cold stride. Not born of stone like elderkin that crouch in iron red, but spun of wire and measured wind and hope the future fed. They raised her high in post-war years when smoke still marked the sky, with slide rules, chalk and quiet fears that steel alone would fly. Two towers stood like watchful men, their feet in tidal clay, while cables curved like question marks above the sailor's way. And when the deck first kissed the air and traffic found its tone, the bridge began her lifelong care of journeys not her own. Each dawn she learned the weight of wheels, each dusk the pull of rain, the hum of work, the ache of steel, the patience of the strain. By tollbooth light, by night shift flame, a ginger cat was seen, no collar, title, rank or name, but eyes of harbour green. She walked the verge where engines slowed, sat warm on concrete seams, as if she owned the span and road and all the in-between. They said she came when cables sang in frost or rising gale, when salt had found a hidden fang in steel that dared to fail. She listened where the hangars spoke, where rivets creaked at night, a small bright ghost in orange coat keeping quiet watch on might. The years grew loud, the lorries long, the traffic thick as foam, the bridge stood firm, but not as strong as when she first was born. Her wires grew tired, her breath ran wet. Corrosion gnawed unseen, and still the cat returned each night to places she had been. They dried her veins with flowing air, fed life back into wire, and spoke in rooms of risk and care, of lifespan, load and fire. Some called her old, some called her spent, some counted cost and blame, but none could price the daily thread of crossing just the same. Then westward rose a younger span, all white with angled grace, a bridge of now, of wind and plan, of speed and open space. The traffic flowed to newer steel, the burden eased at last, and something in the older bridge unclenched its hold on past. Now buses hum where lorries roared, and cyclists claim the view. The river speaks, the cables rest, the sky comes falling through. At dusk, when shadows stretch and fade between the tower's feet, a ginger shape still pads the deck where old and present meet. No plaque records his watchful years, no drawing marks his path, yet those who work the crossing swear she's there when storms grow wroth. A keeper not of steel alone, but memory, use and care. A small, warm life that chose to call a great cold bridge its lair. So sing the bridge, both proud and worn, that learned when not to strive, that found new worth when traffic shorn still kept the crossing alive. And spare a verse for amber eyes that saw it all unfold. The Forth, the road, the passing age, and time's soft hand on old. Wood, adapting again and again to pressures its designers could scarcely have imagined. This PhotoART history podcast traces the full story of the Forth Road Bridge, its planning and political origins, funding and design choices, construction and operation, technical challenges that threatened its lifespan, and its transformation into a new role in the 21st century. It is a story of ambition tempered by reality, and of how great structures must evolve if they are to endure. Before the bridge, ferries, frustration, and early ideas. For centuries, the crossing at Queensferry relied on ferries. The passage gave the town its name, the Queen's Ferry, associated with Queen Margaret of Scotland in the 11th century. By the early 20th century, however, the ferry system was no longer fit for purpose. Motor traffic grew rapidly after the First World War, and queues became notorious. Crossing times were unpredictable, weather-dependent, and economically inefficient. The completion of the Forth Rail Bridge in 1890 had already demonstrated that the Forth could be spanned safely and permanently. But a railway structure did little to relieve pressure on road transport. From the 1920s onward, engineers and planners proposed various road crossing schemes: high-level bridges, low-level bridges, tunnels, and even combined railroad structures. None advanced beyond preliminary studies. The Great Depression, followed by the Second World War, halted large-scale civil projects. Steel, labour, and public money were devoted elsewhere. Yet the idea of a road bridge never disappeared. It remained dormant, waiting for the moment when political will, economic necessity, and engineering confidence aligned. Post-war Britain and the decision to build. That alignment came after 1945. Britain emerged from the war damaged but determined to rebuild. Transport infrastructure was central to this effort. Roads were no longer local conveniences but national arteries, essential for economic recovery, defence mobility, and regional development. In 1947, the UK government formally committed to constructing a road bridge over the Firth of Forth. The Forth Bridge Joint Board was established to oversee planning, financing, and delivery. This marked the moment when the idea of a road bridge ceased to be aspirational and became inevitable. The political climate mattered. This was the era of large public works, new towns, power stations, motorways, and housing schemes. A major bridge fitted perfectly within this vision of modern Britain. Yet it was also clear that such a project would be expensive, technically demanding, and politically visible. Failure was not an option. Choosing the form. Why a suspension bridge? Several crossing types were evaluated. A tunnel was rejected due to geology, ventilation complexity, and cost. A low-level bridge would interfere with shipping access to Rosyth Dockyard, a vital naval facility. The solution was a high-level suspension bridge, offering long spans, navigational clearance, and an elegant economy of materials. The final design placed the bridge slightly upstream of the rail crossing, aligning naturally with existing road networks while minimizing disruption to towns and shorelines. Its form would be modern, distinct, and deliberately lighter than its Victorian neighbour. The consulting engineers, Mott, Hay and Anderson, and Freeman Fox and Partners, brought international experience to the project. They drew lessons from American suspension bridges while adapting designs to Scotland's weather, winds, and marine environment. The bridge would be long, slender, and exposed, a structure that relied on careful calculation rather than brute mass. Funding the crossing, cost, tolls, and public investment. Funding a bridge of this scale in post-war Britain required compromise. The state would provide the capital, but tolls were introduced as a mechanism to recover costs and fund maintenance. This was politically acceptable at the time, reflecting the belief that users should contribute directly to infrastructure they benefited from. Initial estimates placed the cost at just over £6 million. As designs matured and construction realities emerged, this figure rose significantly. By completion, the total cost, including approach roads and ancillary works, reached approximately £19,500,000. In today's terms, this represented a substantial public investment, justified by forecasts of economic growth, regional integration, and reduced travel times. Few doubted the necessity of the bridge, even if its price caused concern. Construction formally began in 1958. The scale of the undertaking quickly became apparent. Massive concrete anchorages were excavated into bedrock on both shores, designed to resist the immense horizontal forces of the suspension cables. These anchor blocks alone contained tens of thousands of tons of concrete. Steel towers rose from caissons sunk into the estuary bed. Each tower stood over 150 metres high, exposed to strong winds and tides. Erecting them required careful sequencing, floating cranes, and constant monitoring of alignment. For the workforce, conditions were demanding. Weather delays were frequent, and safety standards, though advanced for their time, still reflected an era when risk was accepted as part of construction. The bridge took shape slowly, visibly altering the skyline of the Forth. Spinning the cables, the heart of the bridge. The defining moment in any suspension bridge is the creation of its main cables. For the Forth Road Bridge, this process took place between 1961 and 1962. Thousands of individual high-tensile steel wires were spun across the estuary, bundled and compacted into two enormous cables. In total, more than 30,000 miles of wire were used. The process demanded precision. Each wire contributed marginally to overall strength. errors could accumulate disastrously. Engineers monitored tension, sag, and alignment continuously. Once complete, the cables were clamped and wrapped, forming the backbone of the structure. From them hung 768 vertical hanger ropes, which would support the deck sections as they were installed. With the cables in place, the bridge had found its form, a sweeping curve suspended between 2 points of land. Deck construction and completion. Deck sections were fabricated off-site and floated into position beneath the cables. One by one, they were lifted and connected to the hangars, gradually closing the gap across the estuary. This phase required calm weather and meticulous coordination. By late 1963, the main span was complete. Road surfacing, lighting, barriers and approach connections followed. As the bridge neared completion, it became a national talking point, a visible symbol of progress seen daily by thousands. On September 4, 1964, Queen Elizabeth II officially opened the Forth Road Bridge. At the time of opening, it was the longest suspension bridge in Europe and among the longest in the world. Scotland had gained not just a crossing, but a statement of modern engineering confidence. Early years: traffic, tolls, and transformation. The impact was immediate. Journey times between Edinburgh and Fife collapsed from unpredictable ferry waits to minutes of uninterrupted travel. Economic links strengthened. Commuting patterns changed. Tourism increased. The bridge quickly exceeded traffic forecasts. Tolls were levied from the outset, with booths positioned at the southern end. For decades, tolls were accepted as part of crossing the Forth, though frustration grew as queues replaced ferry delays. By the late 1970s and 1980s, traffic volumes had outgrown original assumptions. The bridge had been designed for a different era, one with lighter vehicles, fewer lorries, and lower car ownership. The consequences would soon emerge. Engineering reality: wear, fatigue, and overloading. The Forth Road Bridge was robust, but not invincible. Increasing traffic loads, particularly heavy goods vehicles, placed growing strain on components never designed for such intensity. Wind loading, temperature cycles, and constant vibration accelerated fatigue. Major strengthening works were undertaken in the 1990s, including reinforcement of towers and replacement of hanger ropes. These interventions extended the bridge's life, but also revealed how close it was operating to its design limits. Engineers understood that maintenance alone could not solve capacity problems. The bridge was doing more than it had been built to do, and doing it continuously. Corrosion crisis: a threat to lifespan. In the early 2000s, inspections revealed a more serious issue: corrosion within the main suspension cables. Salt-laden air, moisture ingress, and time had begun to reduce cable strength. Estimates suggested a loss of up to 10% of original capacity. This discovery transformed the bridge from a congestion problem into a structural concern. Although immediate failure was not expected, the long-term future was uncertain. The response was innovative rather than defeatist. Engineers introduced a cable dehumidification system, pumping dry air through the cable enclosures to slow corrosion dramatically. Installed in 2006, this system remains a critical element of the bridge's survival strategy. Politics and public debate. As technical concerns grew, political debates intensified. Should the bridge be restricted? Strengthened further? Replaced entirely? Tolls became a flashpoint. By the early 2000s, the original construction debt had long been repaid, yet tolls remained. Campaigns against tolls gained momentum, framed as issues of fairness, economic burden, and regional inequality. In 2008, tolls were abolished under Scottish legislation. This decision reflected changing political priorities under devolved government and marked a symbolic shift in how infrastructure was funded and justified. The case for a new crossing. By the mid-2000s, consensus emerged that a new crossing was unavoidable. Even with dehumidification and maintenance, relying solely on the existing bridge was considered risky. Traffic demand continued to grow, and resilience was inadequate. The Queensferry crossing was conceived not as a replacement, but as part of a managed crossing strategy. The Forth Road Bridge would be preserved, but relieved of its heaviest loads. This approach balanced engineering prudence with heritage respect. Rather than abandoning the old bridge, Scotland would adapt it. A new role, life after 2017. When the Queensferry crossing opened in 2017, general traffic was diverted away from the Forth Road Bridge. The transition marked the beginning of a new chapter. Today, the bridge serves as a public transport corridor for buses and taxis, a strategic active travel route for cyclists and pedestrians, a resilience asset capable of emergency use. Reduced loading has dramatically improved its long-term prospects. Engineers now estimate that, with continued maintenance, the bridge could function safely well beyond its original design life. Heritage, identity, and the long view. The Forth Road Bridge is now a Category A listed structure, recognised for its architectural and engineering significance. Any future interventions must respect its form and history. It stands between two giants, the Victorian rail bridge to the east and the 21st century Queensferry crossing to the west. Together, they form a visible timeline of engineering thought, from mass and redundancy through elegant efficiency to aerodynamic optimization. The Forth Road Bridge was born of optimism, tested by reality, and saved by adaptation. It did not fail, it evolved. In its cables, towers, and deck is written a broader lesson. Infrastructure must be designed not just to last, but to change. Bridges, like societies, survive by acknowledging limits and reimagining purpose. Today, as buses glide across its deck and cyclists pause mid-span to watch the tide move beneath them, the Forth Road Bridge continues to serve, quieter, lighter, but no less essential. It remains a crossing not just of water, but of time. The case for a new crossing. By the mid-2000s, consensus emerged that a new crossing was unavoidable. Even with dehumidification and maintenance, relying solely on the existing bridge was considered risky. Traffic demand continued to grow, and resilience was inadequate. The Queensferry crossing was conceived not as a replacement, but as part of a managed crossing strategy. The Forth Road Bridge would be preserved, but relieved of its heaviest loads. This approach balanced engineering prudence with heritage respect. Rather than abandoning the old bridge, Scotland would adapt it. A new role, life after 2017. When the Queensferry crossing opened in 2017, general traffic was diverted away from the Forth Road Bridge. The transition marked the beginning of a new chapter. Today, the bridge serves as a public transport corridor for buses and taxis. A strategic active travel route for cyclists and pedestrians. A resilience asset capable of emergency use. Reduced loading has dramatically improved its long-term prospects. Engineers now estimate that, with continued maintenance, the bridge could function safely well beyond its original design life. Heritage, identity, and the long view. The Forth Road Bridge is now a Category A listed structure, recognised for its architectural and engineering significance. Any future interventions must respect its form and history. It stands between two giants, the Victorian rail bridge to the east and the 21st century Queensferry crossing to the west. Together, they form a visible timeline of engineering thought, from mass and redundancy through elegant efficiency to aerodynamic optimization. The Forth Road Bridge was born of optimism, tested by reality, and saved by adaptation. It did not fail, it evolved. In its cables, towers, and deck is written a broader lesson. Infrastructure must be designed not just to last, but to change. Bridges, like societies, survive by acknowledging limits and reimagining purpose. Today, as buses glide across its deck and cyclists pause mid-span to watch the tide move beneath them, the Forth Road Bridge continues to serve, quieter, lighter, but no less essential. It remains a crossing not just of water, but of time.